How do everybody? So I've got a story here from over on the weekend. It's quite a bad one. I'm sure most of you have already heard it, but I thought I'd do a video on it anyway. It just really highlights the state of the British legal system. And what I was saying in a previous video, and it really does make me wonder on why our whole legal system does seem more interested in the rights of hardened criminals and dangerous people than it does of that of the victims and wider society in general. So let's get on with the story and we'll see what we find in it. Also, please do read the story yourself and do make your own mind up. Don't just go off what I say. But anyway, let's crack on. Foreigner who clubbed man to death will not be deported to protect mental health. Can you get your head around that? You've got somebody here. I mean, the fact is foreign or not is a moot point, but he's clubbed somebody to death. He's actually murdered somebody. Now, he cannot be deported because it will allegedly impact his mental health. The judge rules it would be inhumane to deport the Ugandan killer who received a life sentence for murdering Eugene Brainer. So, we clearly have a man here from Africa, Uganda, who has murdered a man who sounds like he is also has his origins in Africa as well. I don't know. I'm just guessing there by the sounds of his name. That to me sounds like an African name, although I could be wrong. But anyway, and he can't be deported because of his mental health. Well, you know what? As I keep saying, I don't care. Like the fact that these rulings are being passed and the judges are interpreting it in this way, to me, is just absolute madness. He clearly had no concern about the mental health of his victim or the mental health of the victim's family, did he? You know, I don't care what reason he's killed him for. The guy is a murderer, and once he's finished his life sentence, he should be gone straight on a plane. So long, loser. Get out of the country. So, a foreign murderer who clubbed a man to death in the back of a London ambulance. Well, that's even worse, isn't it? So, it's not only has he clubbed him to death, he's clubbed him to death in the back of a London ambulance. Will not be deported in order to protect his mental health, a court has ruled. I mean, this story just keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it? You know, I mean, we've got a foreigner here who's murdered somebody, and then he's murdered him in the back of an ambulance. Oh, and here's the best part as well, is his identity has to be kept secret as well. You know, so, and we'll read that in a moment. But, you know, so I do think it would be in the interest of the British public to know who this man is. If he's a murderer or not. I'd want to know if he's a murderer if I met him. I'm sure you'd want to know if he was a murderer if you met him. Because, by Christ, somebody's going to bump into him on our streets at some point in the future. Because we're not allowed to frigging deport him, are we? But we're not allowed to know who he is either. So, your rights don't matter. His rights trump your rights to be safe whilst walking the streets in the future when he's finished his prison sentence. How weird is that? How weird is it that our legal system will protect a dangerous person's identity and therefore put you at risk of serious danger from this individual? Crazy. This is, to me, tantamount to treason. Like, that is the level of insanity these sorts of rulings are. That, in my opinion, that is actual treason by the judge there. It's craziness. Mental. I just cannot wrap my head around it. And I don't care what sort of legal jargon they use to try and obfuscate the reason. I just don't care. I'm not interested in hearing the justifications. It's BS. That's all it is. It's BS, 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 BS. I don't want to do it because I'm weak. That's basically what he's saying to me, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't got the bollocks to do this because I'm a coward, is basically my reading of the my understanding of the judge's decision there, based on the very limited information of just reading those couple of lines. That's my opinion up to now. But let's keep reading and find out if we change my opinion. So, the Ugandan killer who received a life sentence for the murder won a legal battle against attempts to deport him by the Home Office on the basis that it would breach his human rights under, and we've heard this before, the European Convention of Human Rights. And by the way, anybody who's wondering, because we have countries like Germany and that just bat them away when they feel like it, we can't, because Tony Blair enshrined those decisions into law. Now, that doesn't mean that the previous government or this government couldn't undo that. They actually could undo that. They could make it just advisory under the law. But they choose not to, because our politicians are also cowards. Our entire legal and political system is stuffed full of cowards who will not do what needs to be done to protect the people of this country. It is that simple. There's no craziness around this. There's no oh, we're going to get taken to court by the UN or some crap like that. It's simply there is no political will to deal with this because they are weak and cowardice people. And they're only willing to say the right thing once they're out of the job. We're seeing it now with the Tories, who were in power for 14 years. And now they're not in power. Now they're saying all the right things. They've only had 14 years to do everything that they're saying now, but they wouldn't do it because they're cowards. Because what they're doing is getting in the job and they're looking 10 years into the future to getting hired by companies. They want to go work for the UN. They want to go work for the WF. They want to go work for the big banks. How do they do that? They have to toe the line on all this crap. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. These people are interested in doing what needs to be done and running the country properly. They're interested in lining their own pockets and what other people in the London-centric circles that they rotate around in think. That's all they're interested in. Lawyers for the murderer, who also granted anonymity, successfully argued, pardon me, successfully argued that it would be inhumane. So what, he's only beaten somebody to death, hasn't he, in the back of an ambulance? That's not inhumane. That's just inconvenient. That was just unfortunate. But if he goes back to Uganda, that would be inhumane. It would be inhumane to send him back to the country that he's from, where all his family lives, and where everything he knows is, what he's known is most of his life. And even if he hasn't, even if he moved over here when he was 3, I couldn't care less. I genuinely couldn't. But, be inhumane. How inhumane would... somebody think of the rights of the murderer, will you, please? Somebody, please. Because Uganda does not have the required facilities to treat his mental health. Oh, what a shame. What a shame. So now the UK is becoming an open-air mental asylum for the rest of the world to shove all their mentalists over here, and then we've got to live with them. We've got to pay for them and treat them. And then we've got to put up with them killing people in our streets, in our country, in our cities. We've got to do that. Will somebody not think of the mentalist murderers? Please. That is actually what is happening here. We are actually becoming a sanatorium for the rest of the world to send all the nutters. That is actually what that ruling says. Now, I know it's not word for word what it says, but that's my reading of it. That is actually what that reading of it is. So the court accepted that there would be a serious, rapid and irreversible decline in his mental well-being if he was deported. No, you don't have to agree to that. You've chosen that. You've chosen to say that because clearly when he was living in this country, he was already in an insane decline because he's gone and killed somebody. How much more of a decline can he have than that? Like he's plateaued at the bottom. He can't get any worse. Which would amount to a breach of his Article 3 rights under the Convention. There you go. This protects individuals against inhumane and degrading treatment or torture. Well, how's it inhumane? Lack of treatment in his country of origin isn't inhumane. That's just a fact of existence and a fact of reality. And it's not degrading treatment and it's not torture. It's just a lower quality than what he's getting here. That's it. So I'm afraid the judge could have actually have said that, and he's chosen, or she has chosen not to, because the weak individuals who don't want to be seen as mean. I can't go against this because somebody said if I don't do it, it'll be mean. Best just let the killer stay here, hadn't I? Because that way I don't look like a bigot. And that way I keep getting paid my wages, because me getting paid my wages and my pension is more important than the country's safety. Who cares if there's a national security risk in our country? As long as I get my pension and I get my wages. That's what that tells me. That's my reading there. These people are only interested in themselves and how people view them. Now, the judge may say very different to that, obviously. I mean, I imagine they would do. I imagine they come out with all sort of pontificated crap to try and justify the ruling. Cowardly. Hiding behind words, just following orders is what that is to me. That's all that is. All that BS when they come out about this is what the legislation says and this is what the guidelines say, blah, blah, blah. All that is I had to go through the Holocaust because I was just following orders. That is exactly what these people are saying. That is how I view that. Couldn't care less about the justifications. Quislings, I believe, is the word from Quislings. The man known only as ZM was a member of a North London mob. Oh, he's a great character, isn't he? Who chased their victim, Eugene Brenner, into the back of an ambulance. He had gone there in the hope that it would offer him protection from the gang who were wielding baseball bats and golf clubs. What a fantastic human being and a credit to our society. My goodness, that's the strength of diversity right there, chasing somebody down the street with a baseball bat and golf clubs and beating them to death in the back of an ambulance. There's the strength of diversity for you. I wonder what sort of an engineer or a doctor that man was. This ZM. I wonder what sort of a specialist he was. I wonder how much of a net positive and he's brought to the economy. Because up to now, I'm not seeing it. Maybe I'm just retarded. Maybe it's to do with my autism. You know, I don't know. Maybe I am just thick as pig poo. But I've got a feeling this man isn't a doctor and an engineer. I've got a feeling he's probably a liar and he's probably a very dangerous individual and he's probably costing the taxpayer a heck of a lot of money. And he's going to continue in prison. And when he gets out, he's going to cost even more money. Just insane. Absolutely insane. So the killer trapped the victim like an animal. Aftab Jaffrey, prosecuting, told the Old Bailey he was trapped like a caged animal and clubbed to death in a place most normal human beings would think offered them sanctuary. That is true. And not only that, but I would imagine that the ambulance crew would have been witness to this as well, so that's even worse. The killer, who was 18 at the time, I don't care if he was 18 at the time, he's an adult, right? And is now 37, was jailed for life in 2006 with a judge ordering that he should serve a minimum term of 16 years in prison. So this individual is clearly getting out of prison right now. So what I was saying before about this individual walking around the streets and being a danger to other people is absolutely factually correct as far as I'm concerned. Like this man is from what I can read from that, he's actually walking the streets now. Who knows? He could be living around the corner from me or you. Who knows? We don't know because they're not telling us. And we are not allowed to know who this murderer is to protect his rights. So he might end up murdering you. But don't worry, his rights have been protected and his mental health has been looked after. Don't worry if he clubs you to death. Just when he's pounding down on you, just say, are you ZM? You know, in between each stroke, you know, each time that club's hitting you on the side of the head, in between the ringing in your ears and the seeing the stars of each strike, if he says yes, hey, as long as your mental health's okay, mate, that's fine by me. That's fine by yeah. I tell you what, mate, I'll start smashing my head into the floor to help you a bit. Madness. This is absolute madness. This is high treason as far as I'm concerned against the people of this country. Craziness. So let's carry on with this. On his release form, the Home Office sought to have him deported to Uganda, but this was blocked by a first-tier immigration judge. First tier. An appeal against the block by Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, has since failed. Well, I don't think it's failed because they've tried. I think it's failed because there's no political will to get rid of him. All they need to do is change the law. All they need to do. Anything can be passed into law. Literally anything. We saw it through the Brexit process. Don't you forget that. They changed every precedent they could in order to frustrate the Brexit policy process. They even fast-tracked through in lockdown. Remember lockdown as well? Fast-tracking through laws with that. Changed every law under the sun that they needed to. Like that. They even gave Boris Johnson, effectively, infinite powers to pass laws without having to be scrutinised in the House of Lords. And without even having to have votes on them. Don't you forget that. These people can do what they want when it suits them. And when it fits into their agendas and what their aims and aspirations are. But when it comes to looking after us, the people, they ain't interested. Because they'd fix this up. This could be fixed very, very quickly. Literally just changing a couple of laws. Just leave the ECHR, leave the European Convention of Human Rights, leave all these other things, fixed straight away. Pass some laws where people like this who've been convicted of serious crimes have no right to appeal. They could pass that into law like that. But they won't do it because they care too much what their friends and acquaintances think. They're too scared of being labelled a bigot or a phobe of some sort. So, the court heard that ZM has a psychiatric disorder which caused him to suffer a persuasive distrust and suspiciousness. Maybe that's because he's a criminal who's engaged in serious crimes. And now he's worried that people are going to take revenge on him. Maybe that's what that is. Maybe he's not actually mental. Maybe he's guilty. And he's paranoid because he knows he's done a bad thing to somebody. And that somebody is going to have friends and family who are going to want to get revenge on him. Maybe that's what that is. I think that's probably what that is. No, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a thicko who's only got a high school education. So I could be completely wrong there, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that's what that is. Now, please tell me if you think I'm wrong with that. Making him preoccupied with grievances and grudges against those he believed had done him harm. Sounds like a psychopath. Why do we want that man on our streets? He's got to be walking around on our streets. If he gets to... So you could be minding your own business. You could just look at him. You could just look at him, as people do. You look at somebody in the street, because that's what people do without any judgment whatsoever. It's just natural human behaviour. And he could think you're planning harm against him. And then he might come over and smash you around the head and stamp on your head until you stop breathing. But don't worry. We've got to think of his mental health. I'm gonna leave this here because... Oh, sorry, there's a little bit left. There is right halfway through the story here, but I'll leave the rest for you to read the rest yourself. But I'll read this last bit here. The court heard that ZN had a psychiatric disorder that caused him to suffer a persuasive distrust and suspicious, and making him preoccupied with grievances against grudges those who believed. Sorry. Lawyers argued that his deportation to Uganda would have a traumatic event that could lead to his mental condition deteriorating. Maybe, could do, possibly. This is nebulous. This is based on nothing. This is the insanity of it. And that's where the judge should have gone, don't care, get out. Crap. That's what that is. They've gamed the system. Because this is what this is how that Hugh Edwards got off with having nonce pictures, by the way. Coming out with crap like that. And that's how our whole legal system is based now. You've got to come out with all this rubbish. It's just a Ponzi scheme, an ideological Ponzi scheme. And it's just going to end up with more and more criminals on our streets. And like all Ponzi schemes, it is going to collapse at some point. But unfortunately, whereas with a traditional Ponzi scheme, with it being based around finances, it's people losing money. This is going to end up with law and order collapsing. And that's where we're heading towards. So living in an alien world in Uganda, I mean, he's only Ugandan, but, going back to Uganda is an alien world to him, where he has no friends or contacts. Well, what a shame. Oh, God forbid the murderer hasn't got any friends or contacts. Would add to his suspiciousness, and he would be separated from his mother, who lives in the UK. Well, let's deport his mother as well then. There we go. Problem solved. Is that, I couldn't care less. I mean, I've really got on with this, by the way. I mean, we're coming up 18 minutes now. I will link the video in the article in for you to read it yourself. Please do. Like I said, we're about halfway through it. Read the rest yourself. I'm going to leave it at that, but it's basically just going into the articles that they've used and just crap like that after that. There's not much more really. It gives a couple of numbers of deportations and things, but please do read it yourself. Make your own mind up, and obviously think about the needs of the murderer and his mental health and his needs and his requirements, because obviously that's more important than your safety and your family's safety and your friend's safety on the street. Anyway, if you agree with me, you disagree with me, whatever, please do like, subscribe, definitely put comments below. I love reading them, I love replying to them. I'm not a closed book, and I will change my mind if your arguments are strong enough. But thank you and take care. Goodbye.